The All Black podcast is powered by our official cloud software partner, SAP, helping our teams in black become the best run teams in sport. To listen to this episode and all the All Black podcasts, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts. This is the All Blacks podcast.
Kia ora whānau, welcome to the All Black podcast powered by SAP. Super Rugby final this weekend, Blues versus the Chiefs at the Garden of Eden to decide the competition for 2024. So, a couple of days out from the big dance, we chat to one of the OG superstars of the competition. He was captain of the Hurricanes for the very first rugby match played at Palmerston North Showgrounds versus the Auckland Blues. Welcome to the pod, Mark Bull Allen.
You sure you got the right person sitting in this seat, mate? That's quite the intro.
Mate, it's a good intro. From what I can tell, it's all fact, it's all legit. So, mate, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Geez, you're still looking pretty fit, to be honest. You could get out there and have a run around at the Mount Maunganui rugby fields out the back there. But, mate, what's keeping you busy at the moment, first and foremost? Like, what does a day in the life of Mark Bull Allen look like at the moment?
Well, I'm a blessed mate. I got 5 kids,
Oh,
3 grandkids. Been married for 30 years this year, so family's
congratulations.
right on top of the pedestal as far as I'm concerned. I work for a plumbing firm these days called Aquatherm. So we import plumbing piping systems to merchants. So that's my day-to-day, territory sales manager, and I've got a bit of a national role with them. So still out and about, mate, meeting people, loving life. I've got 3 of my 5 children are boys that play Prem Rugby here in the Bay.
Awesome.
One plays for this club, the Mount. We'll forgive him for that. He won't be invited for Christmas, but that's okay. No, he's a good boy. That's Luke. And then I've got a couple of boys play for Greaton here. So still out and about, watching plenty of rugby, mate, and loving it.
Mate, you are. And how's Greaton going? And the Mount, for that matter, are they going all right? How's the season chipping away? We're probably over halfway through the club season, aren't we?
It's a great little club comp around here, actually. I've got to be honest. It's been very, very close. So Greaton, I think, are sitting second. The Mount, unfortunately, and they won it 2 years ago and runner-up last year. They didn't make the top 6 this year. Young team and building. There's a lot of new guys actually around the club scene this year. You watch a little bit yourself, I'm sure. So there's plenty of up-and-coming talent, and you have your cycles, don't you? It ebbs and flows, and you got to ride the waves.
100%. And then, it's great to hear that you got kids playing the game. It's great to hear that you're out and about on a sad day, keeping an eye on things, and no doubt, imparting a bit of wisdom. But also, do you watch Super Footy? Do you watch the All Blacks? Do you have you maintained, the Sky account?
Yeah, I think a lot of ex-players say it. You've before you make teams, you're generally a fan of the teams that you sometimes become part of. And I know, well, not so much the Hurricanes because I was in the first Hurricanes team, but definitely with the All Blacks. I was always a massive All Black fan. This is a story as old as time, sitting up with the old man in the middle of the night watching, the All Blacks play on tours and things, getting taken by my father to rugby. Started playing rugby when I was a 5-year-old, so just a rugby fan. Love it. For my 50th birthday, which is a few birthdays ago now, my parents actually gave me a little All Black book with all of the All Blacks to that time, number of games they played, who played for, and whenever I meet All Blacks now, and you know most of them, I always have look up how many games did they play, a little bit about their background. So, mate, I just love rugby.
Well, mate, you're on that list as well, which is awesome. Look, you're fit, mate. We sort of joked about it when you came in, but you're looking seriously good, Nick. Is that important to you? Is that something that's a part of the routine? Like, you do look like you'd be a weapon in over 50s rugby, to be honest.
Well, it's not important. It's everything.
Yeah.
Self-care is everything. I got, as I say, I got a big family, and I want to be around for them. I want to set an example to them, and I think it's for. It's not just the physical; it's the mental well-being. And they all go hand in hand. So, I think a lesson I learnt from ex-players was to keep going and not stop. You see a lot of guys when they finish, not just rugby, any sport, they give it up. They get sort of sick of the training and the day-to-day grind. Whereas I've continued, not grinding it out day to day, but you adjust. You trim up what you used to do to something that works for you now. 56, 57 shortly. Jeepers, had to think about that, mate. The body's still working, the mind not quite so quick. But yeah, no, love training. I've been a student of kettlebells for over 20 years, and I just absolutely love them. I've got a bit of gear at home. Actually had a workout with my 19-year-old son yesterday. Always make them do a few kettlebells in the session, which they don't like too much, because the kettlebells are quite a challenge actually on the grip, on the calluses. So always try and get those in. And also I know I can beat most of my sons at kettlebells.
That's
So I love training, mate. It's real important.
good parenting that. Look, before we get into the life and times of Mark Bull Allen, like a few warm-up questions. And you talked a little bit about it before, but who was your favourite players growing up and why? Who were some of your idols?
Well, a guy I used to like was Mark Shaw.
Ugh.
Cowboy Shaw, mate. He, I don't know why I liked him. I think maybe because he was a hard fella for a start. He just played quite a simplistic game. It was just about getting the job done, and however he had to do it, he did it. He actually coached me in a team that I went on back in 1990, like a New Zealand development team. The respect to the guy, he used to carry the bags for the boys and load the bus, and this is an ex-All Black. Great. He doesn't get mentioned in when you start banding around the best players in his position, but at the time he was brilliant. And I don't know. I think maybe because I wanted to be a blindside flanker in the early years, so that's maybe why I looked up to him and thought, shivers, I wouldn't mind being like that fella. But I think he was a lefty, wasn't he? He had a very short left-hand jab that took a few out.
Which I think got a little bit of use back in the day, didn't it? But I know he gave a lot of time, didn't he? Like, say, he went on tours, he was part of coaching and management teams for 19s and under 21s, and he's actually, the Dan Carters and the Richie McCaws and some of those guys, he was an influence on their career as well. Great rugby man. What about you? Who was really influential in your career? You talked a little bit around, being fortunate enough to meet one of your heroes and be a part of a team that you're in, but is there anyone else who was a big part of your rugby journey?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of people. I didn't start playing sort of front row till I think I was 19. And the reason I had to convert to front row because I couldn't make the Stratford senior team as a loose forward. Very disappointing. So they were a bit short on props, mate. No one wanted to play props. And I just sort of did a bit of crystal ball gazing ahead in time and thinking if I actually wanted to make teams, I was going to have to change my approach, the position I played and how I trained and what I did. But without doubt, there's two guys that jump out straight away. I love the way Steve McDowell played. He wasn't your big, ginormous front rower that we have today. He was mobile, probably one of the first of the guys front rowers to run with the ball. Quite dynamic, but still did that set piece work. And I had a coach called Ken Mahari who was involved in Manawatu during the Shield era in the 80s. And I actually, when I started playing senior rugby for Stratford as a prop, I propped against him. So he was a bit of a vet in those days, but he actually took the time to actually, during the game, help me. Because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was rudderless. I didn't know where to put my head. I didn't know where to put my arm. Didn't know what to do with my feet. But I knew what to do when I got out of the scrum. But I knew nothing about scrummaging. So he was amazing. He showed me some things. Took the time during the game, which was pretty incredible. And then he became my coach for Taranaki actually in 1990. And a guy that I just respected because he was still fit. He's one of the reasons I actually probably still look after myself, and I just respected the care he took of himself. That resonated with me. I had a bit of trouble listening to guys that I could see didn't really care about themselves, off the field. He did. So I took note of that. There's a couple of guys that stand out for sure.
We'll talk a little bit more about transitioning to the front row, but time, isn't it? Time's such a valuable commodity, and when people give it to you, it's a special thing. So that's awesome to hear. What about, in your career, which was, pretty vast, and best players you've played with and against? Does anyone spring to mind, whether it be people you've taken on in front row or maybe just, people you're fortunate enough to play with and against?
Well, Christian Cullen springs to mind. When rugby went professional in '96, I don't know, it might have been 1920. He was in that first Hurricanes team. And he was sort of, he was cracking it in sevens, just phenomenal. I was fortunate enough to play with him, the Hurricanes and the All Blacks. And you're in the changing shed, you're going out, and some days you're just wondering what's going to happen today. for yourself and those around you. And I was the captain of the first Hurricanes team, but I used to look over and Christian Cullen, thought, wow. You know, you picked it up real quick that he was just an absolute superstar. You know, he did things that no one else could do. And quite often he'd be hanging on the other side because, you know, we never, forwards and backs didn't hang out too much. And Tana Umaga was another guy that was in that Hurricanes team. So those guys could do amazing things from nowhere on the field. Another guy I had a huge respect with, and it was in the Hurricanes team and the All Blacks, was Norm Hewitt. Because Norm Hewitt and I... shared a lot of time on the bench. I think Norm, I don't know how many tests he watched, but I was reserved for 30 All Black tests because in those days you didn't get on too often. And the only reason I know that is that you don't sort of think about numbers. Even these guys that play 150 games they always say don't think about it. You just take it, you know, game by game. But we represented, I think now All Blacks get their caps given to them when they actually make the All Blacks.
Right.
We had it sort of backwards. I'd been in the All Blacks and had retired by the time I got my cap.
Yeah.
So they had these, one year, I can't remember the year, but they had a series of presentations around the country. And Jock Hobbs, the late Jock Hobbs, he presented the caps, and I was fortunate enough, Colin Meads, and there was some, awesome. It was a pretty special evening. But he, in his intro, not as good as your intro, mate, but in his intro, he said, Bull Allen, a guy that played, 27 games for the All Blacks, 8 tests, but he watched 30 tests as a reserve. Wow. I thought, really? Oh, man, I was involved in a lot of All Black games. Yeah. A lot of people pay a lot of money to watch so many All Black games. I've done well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was pretty cool. But Norm Hewitt and I, because we were largely reserves, I really respected Norm because he, like me, we didn't feel sorry for ourselves. We trained harder, and we just had that same sort of work ethic. We just believed that the harder we worked, the luckier we could possibly get. So that was our sort of go-to. Whereas sometimes I saw guys come into All Blacks or in the team, they got dropped from the starting team, and you can even great All Blacks can drop their backsides when things go. Are not going well. So a great skill and a great strength is about to pick yourself up and keep charging forward, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Through adversity.
Absolutely. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but there also, when it came to scrummaging and stuff, was there, players that you locked horns with, you look back and go, gosh, he was good at his craft, or that day challenged me, or that sort of stuff?
Oh, look, very much. We went on a tour of 94 to Argentina, and there's a guy, Patricio Noriega.
He sounds strong.
Yeah, no, he's just got the name for it, hasn't he?
Totally.
I was probably psyched out before he went on the field.
You're Mark Bull Allen, though, come
on. But no, we over there in Argentina, it was a lot of All Blacks in this team that went over there. It was a 94. It was I think it was called a New Zealand development team or something. But anyway, we absolutely got peeled. We played Buenos Aires. I learned to run backwards that day. So I thought that's not good for a prop. I thought, I said to Norm Hewitt after the game, I said, buddy, we won't be wearing a black jersey again, mate. At least we go and buy one. It was a pretty bad day at the office, but it taught me a lot. They had a very different scrummaging technique. How a scrum now is very organised with your crouch, bind, set. They were sort of doing that already in terms of they had a technique where they put a lot of pressure through the hooker. And I was coming out of scrums and I was absolutely feeling like I was going to flake. This pressure was intense. And because they had their own referees over there, they were allowed to build that pressure. Yeah. Whereas we played in any old prop would tell you this, the tight head prop used to call the scrums in. It was basically sink hit. Yeah. First in, best dressed. Yeah, roll it in. And it started high, kodunka. Yeah. So it was pretty unsafe, to be fair. Scrums are a lot more managed these days. But yeah, that actually taught me a lot because even though I'd been playing prop for a few years, to be fair, I probably didn't take it that seriously. All I wanted to do, my whole life was about getting my hands on the ball and trying to run over people, round people, do whatever. Totally. That's why I played rugby, to get my hands on the ball. So that taught me that might have to dig a bit deeper into the old toolbox.
No, they say it's your setbacks, isn't it? That give you the most learnings, and it certainly sounds like that. Look, rugby takes you so many cool places, I'm sure. As you said, you're involved in so many games when you think about, the 30 from the bench, the 27 you're involved in as a player, getting on the field. What about some memorable off-field moments? Anything spring to mind?
Oh, look, you do get some amazing, opportunities on tour. I mean, 1993, we'd played the British Lions here in New Zealand. And we then went over to, where did we play? I think England and Scotland. We had a tour at the end of the year, but we went to Buckingham Palace.
Oh,
Mate, I've grown up in a little town called Stratford in Taranaki where there's about 4,000 people.
yeah.
Wasn't too educated, mate, on how to handle Buckingham Palace, and
Yeah.
it was. There's been a few stories told over the years, I'm sure, from guys that were there, but it was an interesting situation because there was us and the British Lions,
Yeah.
and we were basically ushered into a room and we were told how we were going to meet the Royals. What Royals were there at that stage, we didn't really know, but there was the Queen, there was Lady Diana.
Wow.
And basically, it was pretty simple. You just speak when spoken to,
Yeah.
but like being at home with the wife, no problem there. And then, but we lined up the alphabetical order, and they came along. But then afterwards, it was a bit like a game of chess, because the Queen and Lady Diana and the youngest son. What's the youngest son's name?
Willie, is it? Or Prince Harry? Or
No, it was one of Charles's brothers. Anyway,
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
Anyway, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No one was really interested in, I'm sorry to all the royalists out there, but Lady Diana, there was just an absolute aura. If we could have taken the focus that was on her in that room on a rugby field, you'd never lose a game.
Yeah, totally.
Mate, you'd be hitting new heights every time. Just everyone was like gadunk.
Yeah.
Just, there was just that absolute presence. But it was a bit like a game of chess. There was a guy called Mark Ellis in that room. And everyone was trying to, no disrespect to the late Queen, we all loved her, but trying to get out of the way of her and have a chat to Lady Di, because that stage here in Charlie Horse, I think things were over.
Yeah.
And Mark Ellis spotted an opportunity.
Saw a window.
He saw. He got in there and just, he didn't muck around, just inquired what she was doing later that night. I think she politely declined, but it was a good time. So that was pretty special.
That's awesome.
Doing something like that.
It's amazing,
Maybe at the time you don't sort of appreciate some of those things.
Yeah.
But afterwards you look back and think, wow, that was a unique opportunity. Yeah.
Mate, that's unreal.
Yeah.
Why Bull?
Oh.
Why Bull, mate? Like, is it obvious? Is it not obvious? Tell us why. Why Mark Bull Allen?
Well, I suppose it worked pretty well with the Taranaki team. They had a mascot, which was a bull. But it came about, actually, the late Sid Going. He had a nephew called Quentin Going who went on a Rugby News youth team. You heard of the Rugby News?
Yeah, I remember it. I'm sure many listeners
you must
wouldn't.
be older than you look, mate. They were back. So you got nominated by your club to go. They called it the New Zealand Rugby News youth team. And 1988 went to Scotland and Germany. Man, that was a big deal. So your club, I was fortunate at Stratford, we raised some money. My father, actually, he was very generous, gave some money, but went on this tour. So we played the Scottish under-21 team, and we played the German national team on this tour. It's the first time I'd ever been on a plane. I was pretty green.
Yeah.
And anyway, this guy, Quentin Going, I don't know what he does now. He was a nephew of Sid Going, who was an amazing All Black halfback. He started calling me Bull because even in the early days, I was a bit of an odd fellow. He had short hair, and there was a show called Night Court, and it had a big, tall, bald, ugly fella called Bull. I'm not tall, but the rest fitted, so the name Bull, that's how it started, and that's how it stuck.
Mate, he was the security guard on the show or something, wasn't he?
Jeepers, mate.
I remember.
Yeah, well done.
No, thank you.
Yeah, so that's how that all happened, mate. And even on my business cards, when I ring Bull Allen here, the wife still calls me Mark and a few other things. But most people call me Bull. I introduce myself as Bull.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
mate?
it's good.
It's awesome.
It works.
Mate, talks about the early days. Like, as you said, you got into rugby at 5. Was it just following your mates down there, or that's just what you did in Stratford? It was, one of the only things to do, and away you went. Were you a big unit from day dot, or?
No, definitely not. No, I wasn't a big unit. by all accounts, I was a troublesome unit. I said to my father once, what was I like when I was a young fella, Dad? And he said, in a rugby field, and he said, well, quite often you weren't really playing rugby, you were fighting or doing something else, causing trouble, which, but in Stratford, that's what you did.
Yeah.
Didn't know any different. You don't know what you don't know. So I don't know, just went and I think it was a farmers co-op or something. We used to go in there and they used to have the big scales, used to go and get weighed in each year and line up with everyone else in the old barefoot rugby. I wasn't aware of too many other sports really. It was just rugby. So yeah, loved it.
Mate, you talked about, being physically active today is really important to you. You talked a little bit around, you loved carrying the ball, you loved the physical aspect. Like, you were just wired for that part of it? Was that always something, the physicality, the contact, like that was, even if you weren't a big fella when you were young and became bigger later on, that was just what you were wired to do?
Yeah, I think so. I think, we all got certain DNA. We're born a certain way. You can try and, channel, your emotions, your what you're trying to do into different things. But, you always sort of go back to something that's deep inside you. And I think rugby and being physical is just something that's always been there for me. I don't know how it got there. My mother and father were like runners. They were both sprinters at school. My father played a bit of rugby by his own admission. He was a 6'3" winger. He retired pretty young. My mother played hockey for Taranaki. She's an 80-year-old woman now who moves faster than most, 30-year-olds. So probably got a bit from both of them.
Yeah.
And just always loved sport. Always loved it. It was always a great outlet for me.
Because one thing I really, about the time, like you say, you began your career in the amateur age, crossed over into the professional age, but were you sort of ahead of the game a little bit in terms of, you love to train, you love to hit the gym, I really noticed at the time, there were some people just embraced that side of it almost before it was a big part of the game, or did that come later on when you did turn professional?
Well, the way I remember it is, your memory can play tricks on you. I just remember, like when I was about 18 years old, just thinking, I want to be an All Black.
Yeah.
And then I just started training 3 times a day and just loved it.
Yeah.
And that's what I can remember. I just thought, man, that's what I want to do. I'd played a lot of sports, like, I played tennis, I played badminton. Badminton was probably what I played most when I was younger.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to love badminton. Played basketball, was hopeless at that. Played a bit of golf, hopeless at that. Used to wrestle at that. They used to call me Matt Back because I always used to end up on my back looking at how many lights were on the ceiling. I was crap at that as well. But all of those things probably help drive you towards, what you're not good at. You want to find what you're good at. So you've got to try lots of things to sometimes land in the right spot, don't you? So, I just decided, man, I'm going to give it a go. And took it seriously and just decided to train. I remember sitting in my parents' bedroom. They had a mirror in their bedroom, and I had this some early old rowing machine. I used to put it there and look at myself in the mirror and row for motivation, and what a weirdo. But I would do anything to motivate, and I've always, and I say it to my own kids, I always say, well, if someone's doing what you're doing, shouldn't you do a bit more? Yeah. And I always used to think, man, I bet everyone's doing this. I need to try and do a bit more. And I remember just trying to do extra sprints, do extra, always and still feel quite self-motivated. Just love getting up. And I don't need someone to train with. I don't need someone to tell me to train. Yeah. I don't need people to tell me to do things. I just somehow got that self-motivation, which is a really good thing to have, actually, especially as you get a bit older and tireder. It takes a little bit more, you got to do things on purpose, good things happen on purpose, not by mistake. So it's just something I suppose I can thank mum and dad for.
Totally.
They give me the good stuff.
Oh, mate, 100%. Like there's, talk to us though about making that transition to prop. I wanted to ask you, and you sort of touched on a little bit at the start, like, did someone plant the seed? Was it yourself saying, I want to go a bit further in this game and maybe this is the way to go? But, but also like, how do you do that? You're right. Like I'm sure, okay, get a bit bigger, but
the first thing is you get over the devastation of realising you're not going to get to 6'3" and you're not going to make it to number 8. Yeah. That's the first thing I had to get over.
You're not
I got a mother that's this high and I got a father that's 6'3" and I landed smack in the middle.
Right.
So, that was a little bit unfortunate. But back in those days, I think the idea to be a number 8 or whatever, there was, it's probably no different today. You got to be a certain size to fit certain positions. So I just stopped growing. I wasn't going to get to where I wanted to be. I looked like, crystal ball goes there and I thought, man, there's a lot of good loose forwards. It's the same now, isn't it? Yeah. Everyone wants to be a loose forward, probably one of the most highly competitive positions on a rugby field. And I'd played a little bit of rep rugby and a bit of first 15 at prop, mainly by default, because once again, not everyone wanted to play there. I just put my hand up, said, yeah, if I can get in that starting team, I'll do what it takes. That was my sort of attitude. So it sort of went like this: first 15 the first year when I was a fifth former, or year 11.
Jumped in the front row in fifth form.
I was the smallest. Yeah, I was tiny. Next year I played number 8. And then the next year, so I was playing sort of club rugby in one position and rep rugby in another. And then it sort of seesawed between the two for a couple of years. And then, as I said earlier, couldn't make the Stratford senior team, not Prems, they're called Stratford Seniors. So yeah, I think somebody got injured or something, I'm not sure, and ended up playing prop.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, and that's it. I think I was 19, and then that's where it all started. And then I had to put on weight because I wasn't naturally big. I'm probably more my natural size now. I'm about 102, 103. And I wasn't even that then. And then I just started to eat. And as I say, just trained and eat. So it was a bit of a mission.
Must have been, though, a bit of a baptism of fire. There must be a few first 15 games or some of your first Stratford senior games where you're like...
Plenty of hidings, I'd say, mate.
Yeah, holy hecker, like you build a bit of backbone, a bit of resilience.
Plenty of hidings, and... yeah.
I'm sure some old Grizzly club props were like, here we go, I'm into this guy.
There was a lot of old Grizzly. Yeah, Grizzly being the word, man. There were some tough roosters around Taranaki, these old farmers.
Yeah.
And you come up against these guys and you're sore for days.
Yeah.
But what a way to learn.
I'm sure they still
generally
tell
good
stories.
guys too, good guys, no malice in it. Yeah. They wanted to beat you, but no malice. Taranaki was a pretty good place to play club rugby, pretty clean, physical, no doubt. But yeah, just some good lessons learnt there for sure. But yeah, most weeks was pretty tough, that's for sure, as you're learning. And, it's like anything, like it takes time. It takes time to develop, and you're learning all the time. And but that's all part of the fun, isn't it? If you're tough enough to handle those tough lessons.
Well, you obviously were, because you ended up playing 110 games for the Naki, which is pretty cool. And it was back at a time when NPC was, perhaps at its height of its powers, hugely competitive. Most All Blacks played most games for their province, which is pretty cool. When did that become something on your radar? You'd hopefully got yourself big and strong enough, got your head around, at least the early stages of the technique, and sort of thought, well, if I want to be an All Black, you probably got to start by representing the amber and blacks.
Yeah, well, the opportunity arose. So in Taranaki, when I started playing, the best club side, well, there was a couple of good sides, Eltham, Inglewood, but Inglewood had the Taranaki front row. Yep. There was Ross Elms, he played 103 games for Taranaki. There was Lyle Bunn, who played 80-something games for Taranaki as hooker. And then there was Warren Bunn, who played 100-something games for Taranaki. And Warren Bunn, he'd played in New Zealand emerging teams. He played in All Black trials. So he was the guy that I was eyeing up. And fortunately enough, he tried to jump over me in a club game, which probably wasn't smart because I took his legs out. Not deliberately,
just the way
but
it was
just an opportunity. He was coming at me, and he unfortunately hurt his neck, and that gave me an opportunity. Same way as when I got in the All Blacks, Richard Lowe got banned.
Yes.
So, and I was explaining this to someone recently, quite often you get opportunities through someone else, you know what I mean? Because you've always got to back yourself. You always got to consider yourself as good as those you're trying to replace or get in ahead of, because you're not always got to be looking forward. There's always somebody coming up in the rear view mirror, isn't there, as well? And I think that's actually, to me, one of the, I'd almost say one of the great disappointments of modern rugby is always looking for the new shiny thing. What about the person that's done the hard yards for a number of years, that's still got so much to offer? You just always seem to be looking for something new. What about someone that's been there doing it for a while? Why don't we back and develop them? But yeah, so that's how that opportunity came to get into the Taranaki team. Is poor old Warren Bunn hurt his neck,
Yeah.
He was a guy I used to, really respect, so yeah, that's how the chance happened.
Mate, as I said, it was some pretty cool times at NPC footy.
Yeah.
Then, was there some great memories that stick out? Or was it,
There is.
we're talking about the front row stuff, but carrying the ball was such a big part of your DNA. Like you say, once you got into your work, the big bull roars, and it was called the bull ring there, and like there must be some pretty cool days, whether it was maybe taking down a couple of the bigger unions or things that you reflect on.
It's a bit of fun, really, when people come up to you and say to you, "Why does everyone boo you every time you get the ball?" I said, "They're actually saying bull."
Yeah.
No, I don't believe you. They're booing you. What have you done? So that was always a bit of fun. But no, actually, one of the absolute highlights of my certainly Taranaki career was we won the second division in 1992, and you remember Errol Brain, Mark Cooksley, Jim Coe counties. They had this amazing team, and they came to Taranaki, and I think we bet them. Might have been 12-0. It was a big gust. They were the favourites, and we bet them. That was one of the absolute highlights. And it was 92. I'd been asked to captain the team at the start of the year. I turned it down because I really didn't want to make after-match speeches. I was still this little country boy, mate.
Look at you now, Bull. Look at you now.
Yeah, well, but I turned it down. I said, "Oh no, I'm not doing speeches." I was so frightened to do that, which is pretty sad. But I think the captain, Grant Patterson was his name. He was the halfback. Something happened. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember now. And anyway, I ended up being captain for the last few games, and we won it. And I'd had a fairly good year. I'd scored about 10 tries that year, and I was playing reasonable rugby. But it was just an absolute highlight. It was a real buzz around, and that still rings pretty good. And I haven't seen Errol Brain for a while, but we're good mates, and I'd like to remind him now and again of that day. He never forgets it, because I always remind him when I see him. But that was a pretty special occasion, actually, because in those days, Taranaki, we sort of flipped between first division, second division. It was always a bit of a challenge, because in those days, most of the guys were locals. It's a bit of a different landscape these days, isn't it? So you very much relied on your local talent, and that's where I'd like to see rugby end up. Like, I'd like to see Bay of Plenty, for instance. Filled with Bay of Plenty players. I'd love to see a provincial team that's made up of guys that play local club rugby within the province. I think that would be, if I had a wish for provincial rugby, that would be it.
I tend to agree, mate. Like, it was a different time. Gosh, Bull, over 30 years ago. Like, how was a ball running prop received? You talked a little bit about
Not
Steve.
well. Not well at all, mate.
Was it just popular only in the Naki and when you got out of town? Or
I can promise you one thing, mate. I wasn't popular everywhere. There was a couple of things I ran with the ball. That wasn't the norm. I had a bald head. That wasn't the norm because you're perceived as a skinhead. And 3, I said I don't eat red meat, which I didn't. So I wasn't
surely a front row's got to eat red meat. No,
that's what. Yeah, well, that's what everyone sort of thought. So there's 3 things there that wasn't always popular. And I never consider myself your typical rugby guy. I wasn't popular everywhere I went. That's for sure. And I don't think I was very popular. I don't think Laurie Maines was a huge fan of mine. And I was told sometime later, and I won't say who said this, but the reason I made the All Blacks was because I believe, this is just a story, Sean Fitzpatrick said that, I needed to be included in the team because I wasn't regarded as the best scrummager, and I wasn't in the early days, purely because they figured if I'm running with the ball, how can I be scrummaging properly? And admittedly, in the early days, I wasn't a great scrummager, and I had to sort of develop that part of the game. But what was really confusing and frustrating and was when I did make teams, all they wanted you to do as a prop was to do your set piece. And I thought, well, why pick me? I'm a little bit more than that. So it was a bit of that, modern rugby would probably suit. A lot of people have said to me, man, you'd suit the modern game, running with the ball, your style and all of that. So it's probably a bit ahead of the curve there. But I don't regret it.
Look, I want to ask you that before we get into some of the All Black stuff. Like, you touched on it a little bit. Like, was that fear? But you were aware, like you were forever trying to,
Yeah, was
you know,
fair.
obviously don't take away your strength, which is to carry the ball and keen to do that. But you were forever working in the background around improving your scrummaging. Like,
Yep.
you know, how were you doing that? Were you talking to other props? Were you getting bigger, stronger, technique, all that sort of stuff?
I think the first thing is you need a bit of size, right?
Yeah.
You need a bit of size and you need strength. So in those days, it was a sort of amateur to professional. I mean, in the 3 years I played for the Hurricanes, because I was finished at 30 with 2 prolapse discs, they had 3 years of doing sort of heavy weights, and that's where I started to develop the scrummaging and also time. Spending time. If you want to be good at anything, you've got to put time into it. So certainly was slow on the uptake around the scrummaging, but certainly as my career progressed, I spent more time on it, getting stronger, doing the things around that, without trying to lose the things that you're good at. Because sometimes we focus on what we perceive as our work-ons and forget what we're really good at, where you want to be working on both always.
Totally.
So you keep improving.
Look, however it came about, like how did you find out we were in the All Blacks? Like, on the radio, on the TV, was there an All Black trial? Like, what did it look like for you?
It was a bit different in those days. So we found out via the TV or via radio, which was good and bad. Found out. I think the first time I found out, I was having a couple of tipples somewhere, and it came over the TV. So that was pretty exciting. And then you get the other side of it in '95, where because with good times come challenging and bad times. In '95, we'd had an All Black trial in Whangarei, and they only took 26 players to the '95 World Cup, 3 props.
Yeah.
And so after the game, we'd played this trial, and they just named the team in front of all of us there. So some of us made it, some of us didn't. Oh, in front of her, that's sort of heartbreaking stuff, because it was a big tough guy. You can't really cry in public in front of everyone, and not in those days anyway. You'd cry today. We're a bit more emotional these days, but in those days,
and there'd be 40,
no emotion.
Probably 40 there, were there? Like, and there's probably a good
there was
10, 15, 20 guys who didn't get named.
Oh, more, because you had your 2 full teams.
Yeah.
No, you're probably right. Yeah, because as you say, there's some that made that. Out of the 26, so 21 in each team, I think it was in those days.
Yep.
So a few extras. So that was a bit of a heartbreaker. So we just went back and had a court sessions, and in those days you did that, which
blow off some steam.
Yeah, crazy times.
Go back to talk about being picked though originally, like, because it was, I know you said you wanted to be an All Black and you were driven to do it, and you put some work in, but from the time you decided that to the time you made it, it came around reasonably quickly, and you must have been hugely proud. Was it straight on the phone to the parents? Like, was there?
Yeah, I think definitely. My father was certainly my biggest fan, biggest supporter, and you got to be very careful who you sort of take your praise and your criticism from. You want somebody that understands who you are before you receive either. And my father, he I respected what he thought, because he came, watched all my games, supported me in our club side, always come on the bus, and and he was my biggest fan. And as I say it now, sometimes you don't realise it at the time, but as I say it, I think, well, it was pretty obvious, So when he said something, it mattered.
Yep.
And what mattered more than anything is I knew when I'd had done well or hadn't done well, because you know within yourself. There's one, you can measure your bench press, you can measure speed, but you can't measure what's in someone's heart, right?
Yeah. And
only you really know, because a coach's opinion is only an opinion. You know if you've played well or not.
Yeah. Totally.
And it's just and there's a good verse in the Bible that says, "Many are called, but few are chosen." And sometimes you don't get chosen for anything because people simply are not looking for your style, the way you do things. So life's all a bit about timing, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah, and I was probably a little bit lucky to make the All Blacks when I did with Laurie Mains, because Laurie Mains was a very good coach, but I think he really respected that rough, gruff, do the hard yards. He didn't want to be these props and tidies out and about in the open. That's my take of it anyway. which is fair enough.
Did he ever talk to you about that? Like, I know these days,
No. I think
there's quite a lot of, I hear a lot of stories from players of today. There's a lot of open dialogue. At times they do put in a phone call. They talk to Super Rugby coaches about players and maybe what they need to do and all that sort of stuff. But, when you were first making the All Blacks, it was amateur.
Yeah, it wasn't the style of the time.
Yeah,
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Laurie Mains was a very good coach. Don't get me wrong. My style probably didn't suit what he exactly wanted. You had your Richard Lowe's, your Olo Browns, your Craig Dowds.
Yep.
There's a lot of good Kevin Borovich. There's a lot of good props around.
Graham Purvis. Fitzy got in the wide channels.
Yeah. Fitzy could do what he liked.
Yeah, totally.
Fitzy was the man.
Yeah.
And in the era that I played too, you had your Fitzy had played a lot with Richard Lowe. There was Craig Dowd, Olo Brown. That was the Auckland front row. That was the Blues front row. That was the All Black front row. And as a collective, hard to argue at the time they weren't one of the best in the world, for sure.
And the point you make is really relevant. Everyone has their time, and it's what it was at the day. But then, to go off to a Rugby World Cup, probably 5 front rowers picked. These days, I'd say it's probably more like 7 or 8, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So three. You're right. 5, 3 props, 2 hookers.
Yeah.
I was actually asked. This is not a widely known story, but I was actually asked. I won't say who, but a player rang me up and said, "Oh, would you be interested to take a tour group to South Africa?"
Cool.
No.
No.
Well, now, I'd say yes now.
Yeah.
But at the time, because I was probably still dejected that I'd missed the All Blacks, and I thought, well, if I'm not good enough to make the team, I'm not taking a tour group.
Right.
Just so
so sorry, you're asked in your playing days.
In my playing days. So this is 95. So then I would have been there.
Right.
So if a prop was needed, I would have been on hand.
Understand that.
So it was a sort of undercover way of trying to get extra player there. But I won't say the language I used over the phone, but it was short and to the point, and they got the idea.
Yeah, that's a no.
But it was definitely a big no. I remember taking the call because I was an auto electrician for my father. I remember taking the call, and I never even thought twice about it. But some years later, I thought, maybe it wasn't the smartest thing. But anyway, you live and learn, eh?
Wow, totally. Mate, do you remember first test match, getting on the field? So, I hear so many people who, like yourself, have worn the black jersey. You're only an All Black when you get on the field. You put on the jersey, you do the haka, and then you run onto the field at whatever way it may be. Do you remember that? Was there, where... Did you acknowledge the moment, or let's just rip in and...
Well, I'll tell you something, mate. It's a lot better getting cheered for running on the field than running up and down the sideline and warming up as a reserve. That's a lot better feeling. That's 100% for sure.
Yeah.
I got on. It was against Samara at Eden Park. Graham Purvis come off for a blood bin. So only got on for a short while. But all I remember, mate, my leg was just going... It was just shaking. I was so nervous. Yeah. And Sean Fitzpatrick was pretty good. I remember giving him a big slap around the head and said, "You'll be right." So only was on there for a few minutes, but I think it might have been on my birthday actually. It was 93, so it was a pretty big deal.
It
was pretty amazing. And because you mentioned a couple of things there, but when you become an All Black, you don't want to be just also ran, do you? You want to do a good job. You're very aware of the legacy of the jersey. You've been an All Black fan. I remember when I made it New Zealand, it was New Zealand 15, and Buck Shelford had been dropped from the All Blacks.
Legend.
Yeah, 100%. So suddenly he's the captain of this New Zealand 15. So suddenly from idolising Buck Shelford, I'm actually playing rugby with the Buck Shelford. And I remember it was me and a couple of guys who went into the physio room, and here's Buck Shelford lying on the physio bed, and he's just got ruck marks from the back of his neck right down. In those days in ruck, we're like, "Oh, Buck Shelford." It's like, we're playing with Buck Shelford. And I remember playing a game, and I got a photo of him in the background with Buck Shelford running with the ball. I still had that photo somewhere. That was like, oh my gosh, does it get better than this? But you're aware, right? You're very, very aware. And is that, in those days, we called it the fear of losing. So I was involved in 27 games and never lost a game. Had two draws. Yeah, had 2 draws. One was against England.
Good stats,
last game
Paul.
I played.
Good stats. I like it.
And one was against Greekers in the 96 tour to South Africa. So they were the 2 draws, but I never actually played in a game where we lost, which was pretty cool.
Oh, mate, absolutely.
So that was a good stat to have. But in 93, so I'd had that short run on, and that was the only time I'd been on the field.
Yep.
You know, the British Lions had been here, played Samoa, would have played Australia, and basically sat there and watched as a reserve. But there was a tour at the end of the year, England and Scotland, but I broke my jaw playing against Waikato. My friend Graham Purvis decided to smack me from behind. And he rang me on Monday at my father's work and apologised, you know, as
that's good of him.
a slip of the right from behind, yeah. Quite accidental.
Thanks,
and but I cracked my jaw, and so I was out for 7 weeks. So there was a big decision to be made, because I thought, oh man, I have to get on that tour. I don't want to be remembered as a 5-minute wonder. You know what I mean? That would have been devastating. And so what I did, instead of getting my jaw wired, because it was a real effort for me to keep on my size, so I had all my teeth ground down, because my teeth wouldn't mesh, because my jaw was out of line. So these are the crazy things you do to play rugby. I sat in a dentist chair for 2 hours, and they, you know, like when what's that blue stuff you used to write over to from one page to the next?
Totally,
you know, so I had to grind on my teeth. So it showed all the high spots, and then they ground all my teeth down. So my teeth would mesh so I could eat, so I could keep my condition. So I didn't play rugby for 7 weeks. Didn't know if I was going to make the trip. Didn't know if I was going to get selected, because I didn't play for all this time. But fortunately, I'd made the trip, and my first roomie on the trip, of course, was Graham Purvis.
Totally.
We were roomies, so yeah, but it was a different game back then. This was 1993, not so many cameras. I'm not having a crack at Graham Purvis. You just did things differently in those days.
I'm sure you got a couple in from time to time, Bull, did you?
Oh, no, gentleman all the time, mate.
Yeah, totally.
Never spoke to the opposition or did anything wrong, of course.
Look, what are the best memories first in the jersey? Like, you know, actually, 27 games, an additional 30 as well you're involved in that you spoke about at the start. Like, what are the good memories?
Look, for me, I suppose, growing up in a little rural place, if I hadn't had the opportunity to make the All Blacks in rugby, I'd hate to imagine where I am now. It really opened my eyes to a whole different world that I probably couldn't see when I was a young guy. That's no disrespect to Stratford or Taranaki or anything, but you don't know what you don't know, and you can live your life like this, you know. So it just gave me that whole, just opened me up to a whole lot of different things, and has helped me to think about things differently. So, you know, you meet a lot of people, you have a lot of experiences, and the time in the jersey is short, but the time after the jersey is long. So that's what it's given me. It's given me a lot of opportunities after playing. Yeah, you know, because I was finished relatively young. You know,
you were,
30. Shaping up that I was going to go to the next World Cup, potentially be the starting loose head prop for the All Blacks. There's a lot sitting there. But when I had my prolapse disc, I had a hard question to ask myself: did I want to keep playing rugby? Yep. I was still tracking this way. I felt I was still playing good. I was still getting stronger. I was still feel like I was still improving, but I was always away. I was never home. My marriage was just about shot. I had 3 young kids at that stage. And, you know, I just sort of, I suppose, asked myself, what am I going to be like in 20 years' time if I keep playing? For one, I'm probably going to be divorced. For two, my body's probably going to be wrecked. So I decided I wanted to be married for one. I wanted to be a good father. I wanted to be a good example to my kids. And I didn't want to be a wreck. So sitting here, 30-odd years later, I feel like I made a couple of good decisions there. But rugby still gives me so much every day, just the fact that you can ring somebody and say, Bull Allen, and even though they might not have seen you play or really know who you are, a lot of the time, because we're so big on rugby here, they sort of have an idea who you are, so that gives you an opportunity. Doesn't it?
It's what you do with it. But
it's what you do with it, but it does give you an opportunity, and rugby has afforded me that. It's given me so many opportunities.
Awesome.
And look, you don't always get it right, and you don't always take the opportunities, but nothing's ever going to come if you never take an opportunity or get an opportunity. So rugby has given me a lot, and I still love rugby very, very much, because of that.
You made good points, though. You're a young fella as well. Like when some of that stuff was happening, like it must have been hard because rugby, you'd only been in professional rugby for sort of 2 or 3 years, so there's a financial opportunity there as well. I can see, there might have been a push to kick on, but also, was there option to carry on, like to try and rehab the injury and get back into it, get to the 99 World Cup, or actually in the end it was like, this is a pretty easy choice. I want to be around for the wife and kids.
It was an easy choice, to be honest with you. I probably did think about it. I mean, it's a long time ago now, but I never ever regret what I've done. There's no testimony without the test. You need to go through tests, and you can't lead somebody somewhere if you've never been there yourself. So I just believe we're given a whole lot of experiences to help someone else. And hopefully, I hope that I've been a good example to my family, and I hope that some of the things resonate and help them not make the same mistakes that I've made. Because as most of us are, I'm just a work in progress, still trying to get it right, and still trying to get better. And
Totally,
that's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, 100%. One of our family mottos is be better than dad. Anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah,
So,
that's what you hope, eh?
I do want to ask you, potentially a career highlight. You did go on the 96 tour to South Africa. There's a couple of things around that. One, it was a tour. It was a good old fashioned tour, which we just don't really. That was almost one of the last big tours. Once rugby turned professional, there wasn't as many of them. It was a historical tour, South Africa had only been back after apartheid for about sort of 4 or 5 years. So going to the continent, certainly it was a new chapter in that rugby journey. And it was historic. We won that series in South Africa for the first time in our history, and there's a lot of famous scenes and clips. It must have been very cool to be a part of. Talk us about some of the highlights, and also around the dynamics of how the midweek team pushed the test team and all that sort of stuff. Because there's famous photos of Jonah doing the haka in the stands. Like that sort of. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, look, tours are amazing. Not everyone is blessed enough to be playing test matches, right? And there's so many good players that have never played tests that could have, at a different time. So we got over there, and I'm not sure exactly. I'm not going to put how long we were there before we started playing, but we had a nice build up, and we had a whole lot of sort of team building stuff. We made up teams, and we had all these competitions. So we had some time to, I suppose.
Which was quite innovative too at the time, wasn't it? I know it's a big part of rugby today.
John Hart, John Hart. So, 96, first year of professional rugby, trying to do things differently, doing them professionally. The All Blacks had an approach, a professional approach long before rugby became professional, of course. They were always very professional in their approach and the way they did things. But it was a big group too. I think there was 35 guys on that trip. So it was a big number of bodies to manage, and then the management as well. So we had a lot of team building stuff, a lot of competitions, a lot of good fun before we started getting into the business. I think the All Blacks might have played something like 3 or 4 tests in a row, weekend after weekend, which was probably a little bit unique for the time as well, against South Africa. and also they almost played the same team, because in those days, mentioned how many tests on the sideline. I was reserved for every test. So I'd play a midweek game, and then you'd be reserve for the Saturday. So quite a big workload. And probably, the truth is you knew what the test team looked like. It was only a very few that were going to break into that. But the importance for the midweek team was to perform well, because some of those midweek games were pretty hectic.
I was going to ask that.
It was brutal. The thing is, in a test, you're playing against guys you know.
Yes.
In midweek games, you don't know who you're playing, because a lot of the guys you've never sided before. So it's a very different preparation style. And one of the games we played, I'll never forget, was I think it was called Border. But we went on the bus into, feel like you're going to a prison camp somewhere. It was pretty scary, in the middle of nowhere. And I remember we were at the ground. There was just all these it was sort of like security fencing. You know how you set up the temporary security fencing? And I went outside to get a bit of fresh air and warm up. And I didn't stay out there for too long, because there was all these, I don't know if they were police, army, with just, like the Belgian Malinois, and they were just setting the dogs on the people. It was and it was honest. It was like you're in the middle of nowhere. It was scary, and it was just a brutal environment.
Yeah.
And in that particular game, the way I remember it was that none of it, because normally when you'd go to a midweek game, the test team comes with you, just like a Saturday game. But on this particular game, if I remember it correctly, the test guys went with us because it was the dynamics of you don't want them to travel, you're trying to manage. So when I think back now, the way for the management, like John Hart and the coaches and the managing that was quite a massive job, actually. You sort of take those things for granted at the time. Yeah. But yeah, it was a big dynamic. So love the midweek games, love the touring, that whole thing. The big challenge on a tour like that is that you don't get them and us. Yeah. It's really hard to do that because, you've
totally.
got...
Everyone's competitive.
Yeah, 100%. And, you can spend... I think the first tour I ever went on with All Blacks was a 7-week tour, but you can come back and not know anything personal about the guys you're playing with because it can be that personal, that competitive, that you're sitting down and you just, in those days, you don't want to show any weakness. Yeah. You don't want to show any vulnerability. Yeah. It's just, you're a young man, you've got lots of testosterone and all you want to do is play rugby. Yeah. Sometimes you see nothing else. That's the facts.
Yeah. But, and I've heard I've talked to Fitzy and others about that tour, like just a wonderful place to go for rugby, hugely competitive, whether it's on a Saturday or during the week, they will come at you, they'll play that really abrasive style of rugby, fantastic crowd support. But also one thing that, really resonated with me from talking to people like yourself is they love rugby. So they... once the game's finished, they want to talk rugby. They want to interact with you. They want to share stories like they are rugby people, and that's our thread that sort of 100% binds us.
Oh, they're as crazy about rugby as us. That's a fact. They just absolutely love it. I think there's a bit of a difference in the fact that here we'd say, good luck for the game, and we'd probably leave it there. Yeah. They'd say good luck for the game, but we will beat you. Boy, they are. I've got a good friend who's a South African. His name's Anton Blanche, and I went around to his house for dinner one day, and one night, Gerald and I and the kids, and he said, sometimes us South Africans are perceived as being very blunt and rude. He said, it's not that. He said, you New Zealanders use so many words to explain something. We just get straight to the point. Yeah. And I thought, well, what a great way to say it.
Fair. Look, it's a Super Rugby final this weekend, so let's talk a little bit about Super Rugby. And like, you were there, like you were genuinely there at the start. Like,
very first game, in fact.
Very first game, which is pretty cool. What I want to ask you, just drop back a little bit before that, like, as we transitioned in from amateur rugby into pro rugby and Super Rugby being the first iteration of that, like, how did you learn rugby was going pro? Like, did you, because the first season it was big time, did that catch you off guard? Is that what you thought it was going to be? Like, what did that period look like as you built into that 1996 season off the back of the 1995 World Cup where it all changed?
Well, there was, so I suppose it all started at the 95 World Cup, the comms around it going professional. And I don't know if you recall, but there was a talk of a sort of a rogue competition, and then the New Zealand...
I feel like you were been offered a contract for the rogue competition, Bull. Like, you were a big profile back then.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it was $700,000 US.
Oh, you beauty.
Yeah, so I thought that's pretty good. I think I might have signed that contract. And I don't think even gave my old man a resignation. I said, I'm out of here, mate. I was getting $350 as an electrician.
Yeah.
I said, Dad, who? I'm gone. It was that was looking pretty good for 5 minutes. Yeah. But good on the rugby union. I think it was Josh and Jeff. They sort of, they stood for the rugby union, and thank goodness they did. Yeah. But yeah, there's some serious money up for grabs. Yeah. But I was, because I hadn't gone to the World Cup, I was still in the comms because I was in that, I suppose, top echelon of the players at the time. And it was a bit of, we didn't know what was going to happen, how it was going to unfold. And then being a prop man, not a details man, they just used to say, don't think, just push. So I left it to the experts to get it sorted. And then we just found out, hey, professional Hurricanes is a thing. Before I knew it, we were in Pairua, the police college, training. Yeah. Invoicing the New Zealand Rugby Union. About $1,000 a week it was, or some crazy amount of money, like triple what I was earning, and with no advice of how to do it or what was going to happen. It was just a great magical mystery tour.
Yeah.
You just sort of, it unfolded, but man, it was exciting.
The ultimate test tube you guys were, weren't
We
you? It was
were,
amazing.
and you know, had a lot of spare time on our hands though, mate, 'cause we only trained once a day in those days. Didn't get too much advice for what to do with all this extra money and time, so that can lead to a little bit of a few problems if you're not careful.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it was a great unknown, but it was a special time, and I still can remember running in Manawatu there at the showgrounds, which was the first game against the Blues Hurricanes. Well, they're called the Wellington Hurricanes against the Auckland Blues. And oh man, that Auckland Blues team, you know, Jonah Lomu, Joali Vanderi, you know, Sean Fitzpatrick, Carlos Spencer,
Zinzi,
Zinzi and Brock. I mean, that was, it's to my mind, that era, and just before that was the Wettins and things were still, I think, for me in my time, I think that was one of the greatest eras of players in New Zealand. They were phenomenal athletes. John Kerr and Terry Wright, playing against those guys was incredible. Playing for the Ranfurly Shield at Eden Park against those guys, boy, talk about a crash course in learning rugby and you know how good you're not compared to those guys. Oh, they were ruthless.
Like that's what comes through.
They didn't talk about winning. They talked about how much they were going to win by. They were so far ahead, you know. But you know, it was an incredible time. So playing for the Hurricanes, like I was living in Stratford still, we used to travel and stay at a place, I think it was called the Airport Hotel in Wellington. So we'd travel down. If we had a game in Wellington on the Saturday, I'd travel down from my house, stay in a hotel with the rest of the team, train there, and then play on the Saturday, go home the next day, then repeat.
Wow.
So it was a very different time.
Yeah.
And I did that for 3 years. The 3 years was in the Hurricanes. I think the following year they might have relocated people to, you know, if you're in the Hurricanes, you'd relocate to Wellington. But up until that time, you used to travel.
Mate, it was like, you know, you say, I mean, North Showgrounds, what a place to kick off, you know, a new rugby competition. It was Ram. You came running through the big signage crashing through. There's posters of you. And I, you know, whether it's just being a little bit rose tinted, but like the style was awesome. Like everyone just bought into whatever this was. Like we chucked it round, like you're talking about Cullen, Umanga, Vanderi, Lomu. Like it's almost felt like it moved a little bit. Your style of footy all of a sudden very much suited like this new competition, all these new people from South Africa and seeing other guys from Australia. Like, did you see it coming, or did you sort of get a month in and go, wow, this is quite a big deal, lads, you know?
I don't think you just had no idea, really.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't comprehend the scale of it. It was pretty phenomenal. It moved quick, right?
Yeah,
and
quick.
Suddenly you're in the middle of it. And I remember getting interviewed, it must have been by Sky after the game, and they said, what do you think? And I said, if this is professional rugby, it's going to be amazing. I just remember coming off the field and just being in the wonderment of it all. I thought, this is unbelievable. How cool is this? Because for one, you know, a normal season looked like playing on club grounds in those days. It all ripped up and muddy. You know, I played in a game one time in Taranaki where, in Kāponga, where 6 guys went off with hypothermia. And they had to call a game off. And
it's probably Mark Robinson, I think.
And the game was by a cemetery. You know, it was, you know, and suddenly you're playing on these beautiful grounds.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've got crowds. And you've got people that actually like you. There's a club ground, and I won't say where it was, in Taranaki. We used to stand on the sideline with umbrellas to try and intimidate you. You know, so this was pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. But how did... You know, because the reality is, and I'm not joking, when we said you know you're one of the first stars of the competition. You know, you're a ball carrying prop. You scored a lot of tries. You're captain of the Hurricanes, who played such an expansive style of rugby because you had Cully, because you had Tana, because you had these guys who are such great footy players. But like how balancing the commitments of doing marketing and commercial commitments and you would have been fronted. I'm sure you would have got numerous requests to do this stuff as captain, as a well-known player. Like, how do you... I'm sure there was no support around you to deal with that in the early days.
Well, you know, if my wife was sitting here, she'd explain that I didn't handle it very well.
Yeah.
But at the time, I thought I handled it all right, because you just don't know what you don't know. And I remember with Christian Cullen one time in Palmy there in the square. You know where the square is? We had an autograph session. And I remember myself and Christian Cullen getting out of the car, and we couldn't get across the road. because we just were swamped. Not because of me, but probably because of Christian Cullen, because he was such an amazing, but signing autographs, all of this, you just, everywhere you went, you're like this rock star. It was a pretty incredible time. And I suppose you just got caught up in it. You didn't think too much about it. And you just took it as it come, but you just spent a lot of time doing promotional.
Yeah.
But one thing I probably worked out early was that, because I was at the later stage of my career anyway, I thought, well, this ain't going to last forever. And we had so many promotional opportunities. I thought this is a great way to sort of meet people and get opportunities beyond rugby, perhaps, whereas a lot of the younger guys didn't want to do it. Whereas I thought, this is cool.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of that stuff, and it's a bit like the press. A lot of people talk ill of the press. Well, the press are just doing their job, just like us. Just don't take it personally. Treat them well. But like a referee in those days, I always used to get asked, referees, well, hey, I make mistakes and I'm only controlling myself. How do you think the poor old referee gets along controlling, well, I always say 30 people, but it's a lot bigger than that now.
Yeah.
Earpiece, crowds.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the players, you hear the players just barking at the refs all the time. I mean, how tough is that? So many different dynamics now. So probably back then, the game was almost it was probably more simple.
Yeah. Just rip in.
You just played rugby. You know what I mean? There wasn't all of the analysing of the game.
Yeah.
You'd watch it on video, but you didn't have a clip that gives you all the lineouts, all the scrums, all the breakdowns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You didn't go that deep. You just sort of focus more on yourself than the opposition. So it's a lot deeper now. There's a lot more detail on it.
Totally.
I would say we probably lacked detail in those days. We just wanted to play.
Yeah.
Which in a way, looking back, is a lot simpler and easier than probably what the modern guys and ladies have to go through.
Totally. Highlights in the Hurricanes jersey. Gosh, you played some good footy. And you were skipper. You were captain in those inaugural seasons, which is pretty cool. Things you look back on now.
Yeah, well, probably like when we first got together, because in those days you had a first division, second division, and third division NPC. So we had a lot of second division players, and when we got together, a lot of us didn't know each other.
Yeah.
It's not like today. A team comes together. Hurricane, you know everybody because you've seen them play. You know who they are. So there wasn't the social media. There wasn't the the spotlight wasn't on players so much. So we arrived there, and I remember Tana Umaga, for instance. I didn't know who Tana Umaga was. I didn't really know who Christian Cullen was. Yeah. I didn't know who Philo Tietia was. I knew who Norm Hewitt was because I'd played with him.
Philo Tietia, what a player.
He was an amazing player.
Yeah.
He's another guy you look in the change sheet. What's this fella going to do today?
Yeah.
Big bruiser he was. So you didn't know a lot of the guys. So the great joy was really the first year we struggled, to get it together. But then the next year we made the semis, which was a heck of an achievement. And partway through the season, which was the highlight, is that we worked out that we couldn't rely on the coaches and external influences to drive on-field performance. And we started to take some more ownership of it, which was a big sort of eureka moment for us as players. Hey, it's on us. Yeah. And I just remember somewhere along the line, us as players saying, hey, we've got to take more responsibility for what we do on the field. Because obviously it's easy to blame external and this, that, and the other. But the way to improve is to own it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Take some responsibility and do something about it. And we made the semis that year. The Brumbies because the Brumbies have always been one of the most consistent teams, right? So we'd played them at Athletic Park as the last game of the round robin, and it was phenomenal. There was people just about on the field. They were all on the side, and this amazing atmosphere. We couldn't get over them, and then we had to play them the next week over there in Canberra.
Yeah. And
I don't know if you've been to Canberra, but it's a tough place to play. It gets cold. It's tough. And we lost. And they were an amazing team. George Gregan. Yeah. Larkham.
Yeah.
Joe Roth. Boy, oh boy. There were some heavy hitters in that team.
Yeah.
They were amazing. But to even get there was incredible. So, that was a real highlight because we were considered we were considered nothing really. We had a couple of amazing players, but as a team, we just pulled together, and it was great to see guys that probably to that point hadn't been known, become known.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
Like you say, some second division players who made their name and cut their teeth. Like leadership. What do you reckon? Like as a captain, was that something that you think you warm to straight away? Like trying to tell, albeit younger guys like Cully what to do and Tana what to do. Taking a bit more ownership as a team that you just spoke to. Like these things that came to you naturally, or because there's a lot of support put around our leaders these days, leadership groups, the coaching teams are larger, all that sort of stuff, but you're very much a focal point for that team.
I don't think I was a captain because I was a good captain. I was a captain because I was a reasonable player.
Yeah,
I think. If I went back now, I'd do things a lot differently. I don't think at times I set as good an example as I could. In those days, there was a lot of drinking and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I, looking back now, you think, shivers, I could have done that better. But hey, you know what? What happens then makes us now.
Yep.
And no regrets on any of that. But I think I probably was the captain. I'd been captain of Taranaki for a while. I think I was a reasonably consistent performer. It was more about in those days the way you performed and not what you said. And I always think of, say, Sean Fitzpatrick, who was an amazing leader on the field. But on a Friday captain's meeting, I wouldn't say he was the most articulate guy because he didn't need to be, because you knew on the day you followed him because of what he did. So that was my style of leadership. I didn't overthink it. I just tried to. My absolute unrelenting motivation was just to try and play that perfect game. Always. Sometimes I let myself down, as we always do, but I never gave up the hope of playing that perfect game. That's what drove me. And then what happens when you give up? Then you've got to put that that motivation into something else. And so now I just want to be the best husband, best father I can be. So. It doesn't have to end, but it goes somewhere else. Yeah. But one of the great challenges for young men, I suppose, in sport and women, is that when you become very good at something very young, where do you go to next?
Yeah.
Because it's pretty hard. You go on these fields and you've got all these, as I say, the higher a monkey climbs, the more of its backside is exposed. So more people see you.
Yeah.
And it's a great challenge that when you're not in that spotlight, who do you become? How do you stay motivated? How do you stay, connected to things? So that's a great challenge.
What did that look like for you though, mate? Because like you say,
took some time.
Not abruptly, but you might have played a little bit longer if it wasn't for your back.
Oh yeah, for sure. What did it look like for me? Well, it didn't just happen.
Yeah.
Look, it took some time to mature, to get rid of some bad habits. And then I suppose for me, I realised the importance of my marriage, the importance of being a good father, because when I was playing, because we didn't have the support around the financials, the mental well-being, the looking after yourself off the field as well as so that you perform on the field. There was some stuff, but it's certainly not to the level it is today. So in a lot of ways, you're self-taught. And in self-teaching, you make a lot of mistakes. But you also learn from it.
Still today.
Yeah. But I'm being very fortunate. I've got a wonderful wife. I've been married for 30 years this year. I've got wonderful family support. And somewhere along the line, I just decided I needed to be better and wanted to be better and be a better person and just try and be a good human being. So that's the motivation today. Just want to be a good human being, be a good example.
Mate, I love it. Right, let's couple of questions to finish. Firstly, probably a little bit sad that the Canes didn't get through on the weekend, mate. They'd had such a good season up until that point. But what are you thinking for the weekend? Like, are you going to watch it? Are you following the game? Are you following the players? Are you following the front rowers? Like, how do you view a game of rugby with, after all your time in the game?
There's different ways depending who I'm watching.
Yeah.
If I'm watching, so I've done a little bit of coaching this year. So you watch as a coach. That was good fun. Now I watch as a father when my sons are playing.
Yep.
So it's amazing from when you're coaching what you see compared to when you're just supporting as a parent.
Yes.
So you see different things, which is cool. in terms of the final this week, I'll just be watching as a supporter, just enjoying the game. I have no preference who wins or loses. I'm excited to see the All Black team.
Yeah,
that's promising. I think, Razor, he's a different character. No disrespect to the people who have gone before, but it's time for change, and I think he's going to bring a freshness to it. Watched the thing with him on TV the other day. He's just a good dude. There's a photo of him up here in this clubhouse.
An old stomping ground here for Razor.
So I'm really looking forward to that. And I just love seeing young men, young women develop. That's sort of where my heart is really. I just like to, and that's why I did a bit of coaching this year. My motivation was to just sort of help young people. The sport, the rugby, the whatever is this much. Yeah. Life is this much. So it's, if we can get this much right, this much becomes better.
Mate, last question. Anyone that you'd love to see in that All Black squad? Like there's I've been hugely impressed by some of the players putting their hands up this year. Like sometimes you always wonder, where are our front row stocks at? Who's going to replace this player? This guy's gone, and invariably someone puts their hands up, and they have. Is there anyone that stuck out for you that you'd love to see? I think the team naming's June 26th, so it's not too far away, just after the final.
Well, what I'm really interested in is who's going to be the All Black captain.
Yeah, totally.
And so I'd like to see Scott Barrett in there.
Got any oil for me, mate? And behind the
No,
scenes,
I got no oil, but I'd like to see Scott Barrett as a captain because I love the way that guy plays.
Yeah,
played a lot with his father, Smiley. Probably played over 100 games with his dad.
Wow.
And against him, a lot of club rugby.
Yep.
A lot of respect for Smiley as a player, and I can see through his kids the toughness, the fitness, the ruggedness, and I think he would be a great example there. Got a bit of cowboy shore on him, doesn't he? Yeah, definitely. And I think he's a leader, not by words but by actions.
Yep.
And I think that's what's required. And he had a good relationship, didn't he, with Razor, with the Crusaders. So I'm interested in that. And I think, when a guy's performing, pick him. So Satiti, the number 8 for the Chiefs.
Had,
I mean, a guy that can play to that level. I mean, it's hard to play as well as that. Yeah. That was just
a big game.
Incredible game. So I'd love to see a couple of if somebody's playing well, let's put them in there.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we get stuck by not picking players because we think they're too young or this, that, or the other. I think pick them while they're playing well, but if they're not playing well, change them.
Yeah.
Because form is not forever, and pick guys that are playing well. So yeah,
love it. Thank you, mate. No doubt I'll see you around the traps at the grounds on Saturday afternoon. I think Te Puna have got Te Puke this weekend. I'm sure your boys are out playing for Greton in the Mount somewhere, so look forward to catching up again, mate, and solving all the world's problems like we do when we catch up. 100%. But appreciate you giving us your time today and reflecting a little bit on your rugby journey. Heaps of good stuff in there, mate, so I appreciate it, Paul.
Good fun, thanks.
Cheers, mate.
The All Blacks podcast is powered by our official cloud software partner, SAP, helping our teams in black be the best run in sports. Hosted by Rob Dunn in the Hargrave Street studio. Produced by Carl Thompson from Blue and Ginge, the podcast producers. Video editing by Mac Leesburg, graphics by Western Design, content advising from Andy Burt, and commercial manager for the podcast is Valeska Hoth. Follow the All Blacks podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere you get your podcasts.